let's start with our underscore, right? It's an object. And then we're going to say underscore dot each equals a function. What does that function take? Do we remember what's the first argument?
A list.
A list. And the second one?
Callback function.
Yeah. Awesome. So I'm just going to write some pseudocode out just so that we can think through it before diving in. So first we want to loop through the list. And then in each loop, I indented it because for each loop I wanted to call the callback with a list item. All right. And then we need to make sure that it works with both objects and arrays. And so for objects and arrays, the loop is, you should use different loops. Like we mentioned before, arrays work well with the for loop with the I and the semicolons because of the numerical indices. Objects work better with the for in loop, where we say for var key in obj, that one. So we're going to check which one's an array. If it's an array, we'll loop through it with the other one, with the loop with the I and the semicolons, that one, the numerical loop. And then, if it's an object, we'll do the for in loop. Okay? How do we check if something is an array?
If type of list equals array.
Ooh. Equals.
Yeah, 3.
Like this?
No, not a string of array. Wait, is array. There's a function called is array, isn't there?
You're right. Yeah. So remember, this is not going to work. This is a sad face. This won't work because arrays are object. That's always going to return false. But you're right. We do have this handy function, array.isArray, and we pass the list. This is going to return true if the list is an array. Great. So we got that. And then otherwise, else we can do that. We can loop through object, right? Just notes for ourselves, right? Loop through array. Okay? Okay, so we got that part. Oh, I forgot the most important part, what you should do at the end of everything is to celebrate. Note to self. Okay, so what's that loop that we want to use for the arrays again? How? Anyone?
For var I equals 0.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm just saying start at 0, keep looping until we get to that length, and increment by 1 each time. That's what that means. Cool. So now we want to call the callback, right? So how do we call a function? We haven't really talked about that too much yet, but we just refer it by name. In this case, it'll be called callback. And we'll pass it the value from the list, which we say list.I. This is going to return the value. And then just the API, or for the each function, is then it sends the index, and then it sends the entire list. That's just how it works. Okay?
Can you say that again?
Yeah, sure. So the expectation for each, and just be careful, different versions of each. jQuery has an each, there's forEach, and then there's underscore each. Sometimes these arguments are swapped, but for underscore each, it's first going to be the value, then the index, and then the list. So inside of that callback function, you'll have access to a value, the index, and the list every single time, which is handy because you want this to be a generic function that can be used in various contexts. We don't really know what our future users are going to need this for. So it'll just work and have all of the data available.
Do we need to define callback somewhere else then?
It's there. Oh, you mean, well, so we'll get to that actually. That's a good question. We'll get to that. But yes, we do. But we don't need to define it. We need to pass it because it's a function.
Okay, right.
Mm-hmm. All right. Cool. Any questions about how we handled the array? Before we move on, maybe I actually will call each so that we can look at it with some data. So we'll say each, and then let's think of a name. I don't know. Okay, so we have some names, and then we're going to pass a callback function. I'm just going to put an anonymous function here because I'm lazy. That's why. And then let's see, so the name, index. We'll just worry about the name, index. And maybe this is an array of brothers and sisters, or maybe animals, because Porgy would be a really bad name. Maybe it's a nickname. Anyway, it's a series of names, and it's an order of oldest to youngest or something like that. So there's an order. So this function is going to say that name is younger than name, then, oh, we do need this list. So we can say, I'm just going to say if name, oops, name, you guys are letting me do some crazy stuff. You got to be my linter. Name I plus 1, so the next one. So if there's an I plus 1, we'll say that the current name is younger than name I plus 1, else we're going to console.log that name. That won't work, right? We don't want to. We want it to be a variable. Name is the oldest.
Do we want list I plus 1?
Oh, yes. Why is that not matching? Oh, it's not a space. Okay. All right. So we understand what's happening? For each one of these, so Sally's the youngest, Georgie's in the middle, Porgy is the oldest. And we're going to loop through. We're going to check if there's an item after the current index, we're going to console log that Sally is younger than Georgie. Yeah? And then if there isn't one, then we'll say Porgy is the oldest. Okay? So now let's take a look. So this is us using the function. Now let's look at the internals. This is the part that usually we don't think about. We just trust that it's going to do what it's going to do, and then like see what it does. And if it does the right thing, we're happy. And if it doesn't, then we kind of fiddle and like maybe hope for the best. I don't know. That's my strategy. It's not very effective. So let's think critically about this. Okay, so list is what?
The array.
Yep, this is the array. Callback is what?
function.
Yeah, this entire function. Okay? Keep that in mind. That's important. So, if array to isArray list, what does that evaluate to? Gray sweater crew. Anyone over there? Is this going to be true or false? You can join them too. True, yeah. So this will be true. And so we'll hop into this block here. So we'll loop through the length of the list. And we're going to call this function with three things. The first one is the value, list.I. So the very first loop, I equals what? 0. And so list.0 is what? Sally. Yep. What's I again? 0. And what's the list again? Gray sweater crew? The array. Awesome. So we have this, and it's going to line up with this. So list.I, Sally, is going to be name, I is 0, and list is the list. Following? You kind of have to like snake through it. So we're going to hop in. I'm going to write us a note here that we have Sally, and we're at 0, just so we know. And so the list at I, which is 0, plus 1 equals 1. That is going to be what? True or false?
True.
Going to be Georgie, which will be true. It exists. So this will be true. And then we'll console log that Sally
Is younger than
anyone?
Georgie.
Georgie. Yeah, we got it? Cool. And then it will do that for each one. So then it will do the same thing for Georgie. I'm not going to go through it all unless you, would you like me to go through it one more time to review, or do you think we feel solid on how this works? So one more time. Solid. Don't do it. Okay, cool. Awesome. Now,
Do
We
your
won't.
list 1 there.
oh yeah. All right. Who here finished the underscore each? You did it for 1. No? Okay. We don't really have time. I would really like to challenge you guys to do the object part, but for the sake of time, for those of you who are watching, if you only did 1, I would say pause and come back. But I'll just do it because of time. So else, we're going to just loop through. We're going to assume, otherwise this is an object, and we want it to work the same for an object. That's the nice thing about underscore versus like native array for each, is that you don't have to coerce it into an array. We'll see later on some tricky things that look like arrays, but they're really objects. So, so we're going to say callback. How do we get the item? List bracket key. Why is it brackets? You guys know?
Because it's non-numeric.
Because it's a variable. Yeah. Also non-numeric, but we would have to do that. Or a dot. And then how do we get the index? I say index because it's not an array.
Key. Is it just key?
Yeah, it's just key. And that's going to be the property name. Cool. There you have it. Questions? So, do you think if I asked you to implement this, we erased it and you needed to re-implement it, do you feel like you could re-implement it now that you've seen how it works? Or do you think maybe you're still a little stuck? You can be honest, I'm just curious if this got you there or if some people need more. I'm not going to go into more right now because I don't have time, but I'm just wondering what the temperature is. Like temperature is I'm there, like almost there, not quite. Okay, we have some almost. Okay. Well, lucky you because we're going to do something really similar with map. You guys familiar with map? Sweet.